You launched Syska Innovations, which is a VC-style platform inside of a 97-year-old firm. Now, that's not normal. So how do you build a culture that doesn't just tolerate entrepreneurialism, but actually funds it?
The firm's always had a high bar when it comes to being innovative, looking for the best solutions. So when other firms and AEC Angels, a subset of our Syska Innovations group here at the firm, got together literally over a beer, and we're talking about what each of us were doing, and the light bulb went off and said, well, why aren't we doing this together? The sum of the parts is probably worth much more than the whole, and I don't mean that financially. I'm talking about the brain power.
Welcome to the Word on the Street podcast, where it's all things AE.
I'm Mark Goodale, he's Mick Morrissey, and you are watching Morrissey Goodale's Word on the Street podcast. Mick, how's your summer going so far?
Summer's going great, Mark. It's golf season. As you know, I like to become one of the top 3 customers for Titleist golf balls, and I'm well on the way to that.
How many balls do you go through in 9 holes, let's say? Are you, at the turn, do you have the same ball you started with? And if you do,
Yeah.
Does it have a giant smile in it? Has it hit a cart path? Is it scuffed?
It does. I generally don't make the turn with the same ball, and more so this summer than ever before, I've had to leave the course before the turn because I've run out of balls.
I see.
Yeah.
And do you, when in your scorecard, there are numbers, but are there any letters as well? Like
There are
X
no
or
numbers,
anything like
there are
that?
no letters, but I do take 3 scorecards with me.
Well, we got a great guest today, a great leader and a great guy waiting in the wings for us. And so why don't we introduce him? Joining us today is Cyrus Izzo. He is president and CEO of Syska Hennessy, which is number 163 on ENR's top 500 list. Cyrus, welcome to the street.
Thank you, fellas. Great to see you both.
Great to see you.
Great to see you.
And Cyrus, you are a New York guy through and through. And if I recall correctly, the boys of summer of choice for you are the Mets, not the Yankees. Is that right?
We're starting off on this foot. Okay, yes,
We have something in common. We both don't like the Yankees. So
that is for sure.
how bad can it be? Now, my daughter is in New York City now, going to school for acting, and she's a freshman. No Academy Award yet, but she is our retirement plan. So we hope things happen quickly, but no pressure.
Well, I hope she gets a good manager, just, someone other than maybe you.
Yeah, she needs an agent, and that agent is not me. I just pay the freight for school. That's my job.
Mark,
That's
did
for sure.
you do any acting or singing or soft shoe dancing
Every day,
when
every
you were
single
growing
day.
up? Yeah.
Growing up,
I know you
and
do
in-
it now,
in this
but,
job,
yeah.
yes. Cyrus knows all too well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any summer plans for you, Cyrus? Are you sticking around? Are you going international?
We have an interesting year this year. My older daughter is getting married,
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
so we're very excited about that. And I don't know how she did it, but my wife put up with me for 35 years. So after we get
Congratulations.
through, thank you. After we get through the big wedding, we'll be heading over to Europe for a couple of weeks to celebrate her putting up with me and this job for 35 years.
That's terrific. That's a great year. That's a great summer for
That
you.
is a
Very
fantastic
exciting.
summer.
Well done.
Where are you, what countries are you hitting in Europe?
This time we're just going to France.
Ah, bon, as I like
Beautiful.
to say.
Beautiful. Been to France twice, never more than for 24 hours. Walked it both times. I would like to stay over one night.
Yeah.
We're
I
working.
know that feeling.
You
I know
can.
that feeling.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little business here, Cyrus. Very, very interesting firm, and always struck me as a very entrepreneurial firm, and that being the legacy of the company. You launched Syska Innovations, which is a VC-style platform inside of a 97-year-old firm. Now, that's not normal. So how do you build a culture that doesn't just tolerate entrepreneurialism, but actually funds it?
No, I mean, look, I want to go backwards a little bit to go forwards. The firm has always been highly innovative.
Mhm.
We're probably awful at telling anybody that we're highly innovative because engineers just think that's their job. We don't need to tell anyone what great work we're doing. So, since 1928, from the founders through the multi-generations of the family, the Hennessy family, really, I give tip my hat to all of the people. We stand on their shoulders. The firm's always had a high bar when it comes to being innovative, looking for the best solutions. That continued right through, right, with the current team that's in place, the leadership team. So when other firms and AEC Angels, I don't know if you've looked up on that, it's kind of a subset of our Syska Innovations group here at the firm. We got together literally over a beer and we're talking about what each of us were doing. And, we kind of a light bulb went off and said, why aren't we doing this together? The sum of the parts is probably worth much more than the whole. And I don't mean that financially. I'm talking about the brain power of, architects like Shop, builders like STO Building, structural engineers like TT, Thornton Tomasetti, and of course us. So we had already started our own innovations team internally, led by our chief technical officer, Rob Iona, here in New York. And I said, this makes a lot of sense because if we want to bring to our clients, kind of the cutting edge, maybe not the bleeding edge, but the cutting edge opportunities that are out there that improve their outcomes, right? Improve their environments, improve and solve for their business issues. Nobody builds a building because they feel like spending a couple of $1 billion. They do it to solve a business issue.
Right.
So if we can bring to them that solution that they haven't seen before, and they're willing to take a little bit of a risk, maybe calculated risk, but nothing goes without a little risk. Why not, kind of lead the industry? We've always felt like we were at the top of the heap when it comes to leading the industry in design and commissioning and consulting and low voltage. So we just put our money where our mouth is. We really just sat down and carved out, nothing goes without time and money, carved out what we think the investment strategy could look like. Look, we're a privately held company, but we have, call it 100 shareholders. I put together an investment committee that reports to the board. They review every investment, whether that's time, money, or both, and they make a recommendation. And then the board either, votes it up or down, and we go forward from there. So I think it was really nothing miraculous and new. I think we just had to put some structure around it, and capture the culture that we've always had in the firm and move it forward.
So you've got Syska Innovation, you've got AEC Angels and partnerships with startups. When you see a promising new idea, and it sounds like it goes through a washing machine here of sorts, but what is it about these that tell you, these ideas that tell you, let's build it, let's buy into it, let's partner up? What's that magic moment?
Well, it's a few things, right? The people on our team, I'll speak to the Syska Innovations team, are the ones that are client facing, right? They're the ones that are taking the pulse of different clients in all the different sectors we serve, whether that's aviation, mission critical, healthcare, higher ed, you name it, corporate interiors. So they're already hearing the pain points from the owners we currently enjoy the partnership with. So right there, they can get tuned into, hey, this can solve a business issue for my customer. That's like kind of step one. Would you call it the washing machine? That's like the first cycle. The other piece is through AEC Angels, we put together an owners advisory committee, with the likes of some of the largest owners of real estate on the planet. One of them has about 150 million square feet, for example, globally. They sit on the advisory committee. We meet with them quarterly. We do little shark tanks with them. We pitch different, concepts to them. And, that feedback is massive. Some of them actually raise their hand and say, I want to beta test that. How do I get in front of this technology? I'll put in some sweat equity, which costs them money too, right? And, we'll beta test it. The feedback, though, is most important. Feedback to these founders, these startups. They get the input from, global banks, global real estate funds, family offices that are, heavily invested in real estate. They get that feedback to improve their product, not just our feedback as engineers, but the owner's view from their facilities team. So it's really been a win-win, and it really gets people excited in the firm.
Well, speaking of excitement, it's got to keep you going too, Cyrus. This kind of aspect to the firm has got to keep it fresh for you, and you're constantly looking at moving the ball down the field and creating and innovating. It's got to be exciting for you. It's got to be that one of those things anyway that keeps you getting up in the morning and doing what you're doing.
No, that's absolutely true. Look, the titles, whatever, put that all aside. I think being an engineer at heart, and I'm at job sites, I'm in big meetings with owners, kicking off projects, and that's our core. That's who we are, and it helps us really do a lot of great recruiting at every level of the firm. Right? You go into a university today, it's very different recruiting than say when I got recruited. And God knows the when you got recruited. So, I think, in all seriousness, we're now competing with the likes of Meta or Google or Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan for the same electrical engineer, that they're going to slide into a job that, quite frankly, we cannot compete on dollars and cents. We just cannot. So we have to be able to sell them something different. And innovation, I think, is part of that story.
So Cyrus, not all bets pay off.
That's
You
true.
mentioned risk. What's one bet that you've made that didn't pay off or hasn't yet, but you're still glad that you made it?
That's a great question. So, a real life example. We moved into the UAE market in the Middle East right after the financial crisis, when everybody was getting their brains beat in. We heard all the horror stories, not getting paid, projects canceled, cranes sitting in Dubai, empty buildings, not complete. That was just the time to jump in. So we got there, and we met a few people there that really made us take a step back and say, we can do this, but perhaps we don't do it alone. And we formed a joint venture partnership with a phenomenal company and a great bunch of people who have been in the region their entire lives, but their business is more than 50 years old. They're not engineers in the sense of like a Syska, but they are very technical. They have a great business. We partnered with them, and listen, it took some time, right, to get into the culture, figure out who the right owners were to work for, et cetera, et cetera. And that investment was a nice word of saying losses, but it was like, we had to hang in there, right? You keep watering the bamboo. Hopefully something sprouts up in some amount of time. And you look at today, and AI, as an example, is blowing up in Saudi, all over the region. So what started off as a one person, soon two people shop, it made people understand, like, not everything pays off in the short term. So here we are now, 2025. What do we have? We have close to 50 people in 2 locations. Dubai is the mainstay. This year, we just launched our Saudi location with about 8 people. The combined entity is about 50. I think it would really hurt us globally if we were not well positioned in that market, with the amount of investment companies like G42 and Cosna and now Humane AI. These are big names with a lot of money behind them. They're not just investing in data centers, right? This will now transcend into other markets: aviation, healthcare, higher ed, and all the different verticals we're very strong in. So I think it was maybe a little longer payoff than some of the shareholders were happy about, but I think they're really happy now.
Yeah, that point about the payoff being longer, we see this in our strategy work a lot, Cyrus. And it's interesting when you talked about how you connected over a beer or whatever with these peers to realize you're all pretty much exploring the similar types of innovations with a similar set of goals. And we see this. It doesn't matter if the firm is 50 people or 5,000 people. There's a cottage industry of innovation, all around goals of better client service, and faster, better, cheaper, ultimately more efficient. Maybe not cheaper, right? When I think of Syska Hennessy, I think of a firm that started in the Northeast in New York,
In New York.
really is a national firm by virtue of your presence, and really is a global firm, right? But you talked about the experience in Dubai and the Kingdom. You've operations in the Far East. When you think about innovation, do you see the U.S. industry as leading in that regard, or do you see a greater appetite, more investments, greater risk-taking overseas?
I don't think the calculus has changed much. The United States market is terrific, right? And it's highly innovative. It's very litigious. So I think what happens in the US market is, although people would love to take a little bit more risk, the way the world works here in the US, I don't have to tell you, that risk reward line is like here. You go to other parts of the world, you talk about places like Saudi, for example, or Abu Dhabi, they're willing to take on more risk, calculated risk. They'll do that upfront work to prove out the concept. And they're willing to understand that not everything will be paid off, in 3 years or 4 years. Some things may get tweaked and the payoff may be longer. Not unlike the story I gave you about our own experience in Dubai, right? Same in China. Our office is in Shanghai. We opened that office because quick story, somebody in New York who was with us for a very long time, great fella, came to me like 3 months after I got promoted to be a co-president with my former co-president partner, who's now retired. And he resigned. And I said, I guess that's because I just got promoted. You must hate that you're leaving. But in fact, we were very close. And he said, no, I have to get home. My family is there and, they're getting older. I need to get closer to them, et cetera. I said, so why do you have to leave? Why don't you go start an office? And he just laughed at me and he said, what are you crazy? I'm going to Shanghai. So make a long story short, we scrapped out on a piece of paper a couple of golds. I brought it to the board at that time. This is like 09, maybe 010. And, I don't know, maybe they were drinking a lot that morning. They all signed off on it. We all trusted this fella. We now have close to 44 or 43 people there. In fact, we're having a board meeting there in the end of the summer. And he does a terrific job. That's another market where, depending on the owner, if it's a local developer type owner, no. We don't really see that, hey, we'll take on more risk like we do in the Middle East. If it's, some of the US companies that are a little bit more flexible outside of the US, who have big holdings in the Far East, we can convince them to, beta test some new products, some new concepts, et cetera. So it's interesting because, it's the same company. It's usually different leadership.
Yeah.
So it's not the same. Our experience in China is different than our experience in the Middle East.
You talked about planting seeds, which is in business you have to do. There's this sense of immediate gratification, some of the younger generations. And so you got to kind of teach them that it really is about the long game. I know we worked on a strategy some time back, and that's now coming to the point where you're looking to develop a strategy for the next 10 years. And you look ahead to 2035. What should a firm like Syska be a decade from now? Are we talking something that's similar to what it looks like today, or are we talking something much different?
Yeah. So, back when we were working with you, Mark, and we were putting together, the earmarks of what we called, if you remember, Vision 2025.
Mm-hmm.
We launched that the first day, January 2015. It sunsets at the end of this year, and we'll be ready to launch. I don't know what we'll call it. We have a lot of branding. A lot of engineers want to be marketers, I think. So we have a lot of names. I like just vision. Why not keep the same? But I'll get out both. That's okay. But it doesn't matter. The process is as important, as you guys know. The process of doing this is as important as the actual plan itself. Getting everybody in the firm aligned, making sure all the vectors are pointing at least toward the North Star. They may not be exactly aligned, but let's all at least get on the same page, is very important. And without that 9-10 month process, the dialogue, the what I would call is constructive debates. They're not really arguments, but they're heated and they're constructive. And at the end of the day, we have to align people around the planet to make sure we're executing. I don't believe the firm will look like it does today at the end of Vision 2035. I'll use Vision again. And why is that? Quite frankly, that last plan and each of the annual business plans that go with it, right? Because things change. The plan didn't contemplate COVID, right? The plan didn't contemplate a lot of things that are outside of our control. So we have to be very flexible, and we kind of tackle that. We reset some of the metrics. We adjust every year with our business plans. Our firm's profitability in real dollars has gone up 5x in 10 years. The firm's bigger. We have many more people. We have many more locations. We have many new services, verticals, and it's all kind of goes back to the plan, right? If it passes the litmus test and it can stand up to the core values and the goals we put in place, then it should pay off. The impatience with some of the folks at every level is, how long is that payoff, right? And I think you have to be reasonable to understand not every investment has the same payoff period. Some will take, much longer than some others. That said, I think we've gotten most of the people's brains and the trust to say, yes, we will trust that this will work and we'll help it. We won't look at, oh, wow, that canoe is sinking over there. I'm glad I'm not in it. It's like, no, we all have to run toward that canoe and try to make sure it doesn't sink, right? And what are we doing to make sure that we're all rowing toward that canoe to, prop it up? So we have a much stronger balance sheet in 2025 than we ever did before. We have a much stronger team, a younger team, quite frankly, in 2025 than we ever did before. Yeah. So I really believe that at the end of the next decade, the firm will triple in size. It will be in multiple geographies that do not exist today. Like, for example, Europe. Like, why hasn't Syska in 97 years hoisted a flag in Europe or in London or, other places that our clients ask us all the time, right? These are global clients. You look at our client list, they're the Fortune 100. And they ask us all the time, if you could help us in France or Spain, London, we're happy to work with you all. So that's the genesis behind why did we open Saudi this year? This was not an easy thing to do. It sounds easy. It's not like opening up an office in, Hoboken across the river. Yeah. Right? This is a lot of work. It took about a year, maybe a little over a year, just to get the licensing in place.
When you think about Vision 2035, I'm going to go with Vision, Cyrus. So I'm a supporter for you there.
Thank you.
When you think of Vision 2035, how do you incorporate changes in the industry into that vision? And so if you just look at the last couple of years in your home city of New York, notable MEP competitors / peers have sold. AKF sold to WSP, Lilgren Associates sold to IMEG, EME sold as well. And there will be others. So where do you get the confidence that in 2035, Syska Hennessy will be independent, 100 plus shareholders, whatever it may be? Where do you get that confidence from? What's the imperative for that in the vision?
Look, I can't speak to the capital structure of the firm in 10 years. Who knows, right? But I will tell you the bias today with the management team and the next generation is to remain privately held and independent. Now, look, there's a lot of definitions and a lot of flavors of what independent means and what privately held means. But I will tell you this, no one gets very excited. And I'm not saying what those firms did was wrong. I want to assume it was good for them. So I'm happy. I know these people. Some of them are friends of mine for years. No one gets very excited when we talk about, hey, do you want to join a 30,000 person PMIT and you can now, reporting to 17 layers, and maybe you'll meet the CEO one day, and maybe they'll take you to a meeting, and maybe you'll be part of the next strategic plan. Like, let me give you an example of why I think we're in a very interesting and powerful position. We literally sat down with the entire firm. Our chief admin officer, he's probably at the bar still, he went around the entire company and had town halls with every office in the firm. And the two international, just to make it a little easier, we did by Zoom. So we took in not just written survey data that most firms do. We literally went out and had focus groups with every demographic in the organization. We always talk about, yes, we're a general C Corp and we've been formed that way, but we really behave like a partnership, very entrepreneurial. We really look at things like take innovations, right? I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm not inside the inner workings of, XYZ publicly traded monstrosity, but I don't know that you could just get around a table with a bunch of like-minded individuals who are passionate about innovation and say, hey, let's form an investment committee, put our money where our mouth is, and do all the things we were talking about earlier. It feels very slow and stodgy, from the outside looking in. So for us, we can make that decision literally in a day. And it wouldn't take much effort, right? I could get the board on the call. We could have the meeting. Everybody pledge their allegiance to whatever we're looking to do. And then we just go do it.
Yeah.
So when we were like 350 people, this summer we'll breach 700 people. We still have that same mentality. The organization's very flat, right? Very flat. We don't have 7 layers to get through to prove out a concept. So I think if we keep that spirit, that doesn't mean the capital structure, that doesn't mean the org chart. If we could keep that spirit in the firm for the next decade, I think it'll be wonderful for the current shareholders and the future shareholders and our clients.
Cyrus, we talked about strategic planning, what it's going to look like in 2035. It all revolves around people. And you've said before, or somebody who looked exactly like you said before, firms need to create gravity for top talent. What does that gravity look like at Syska now?
Yeah. So listen, we are not perfect. So anybody who says, their firm is perfect, they're lying. We have tried to, make our firm a very people-focused organization. From, recruiting at the college level, our EDT program, our training program when they get here is second to none. Even at the mid-level and senior levels, right? We have a privately held operation with private stock that gets valued externally by a third party. We have an independent auditor. This isn't some dark, smoky room with 4 people who own the whole firm and tell you what they think you want to hear. Like, we're very transparent with the numbers. I would say, and I'm quite convinced I'm right about this, our total compensation structure would dwarf anybody in our industry. When the firm does well, people at Syska do very well at every level. So, the secret sauce isn't just the money, although I think it's still important to a lot of people when we're recruiting them at every level, but it's that training, it's that development, it's that camaraderie, it's that entrepreneurial spirit where somebody could walk into my office, and it happened, and said, I'm moving to Shanghai. And we make a few phone calls and say, yep, you'll be opening an office for us in Shanghai.
So that
doesn't happen often.
Yeah. And that seems to be the DNA in the firm. You use the word entrepreneurial, and that sort of attracts and keeps those kinds of folks. What's something that you've done to encourage entrepreneurial thinking or even innovative thinking from people who didn't necessarily think of themselves that way?
You know, this is a mantra that I've been using, and some people hate it by now, but that's okay. It worked in my house, and it seems to be okay with my kids. I think we all have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that starts with me, right? I didn't learn in engineering school, CEO 101 program. Oh, let's manage through COVID. A lot of it is a little bit of school of hard knocks too. So I just told everybody, like, look, we have three career paths at Syska that we really double down on and invest in. You could be chief engineer kind of path, and we need the best and the brightest, most technical, innovative people who can communicate well to our clients. You can go down the path of a practice area expert, and help us just kind of lead the pack globally in, the business of aviation or the business of data centers or healthcare or whatever that's your passion. And the last one is, look, we're a business. We're a business-centered practice. There's no doubt about it. We have to run this place like a business, because if we don't make money, we are not able to attract the best talent, retain the best talent. We're not able to invest in innovations. We can't do all the great things that we're pretty jazzed about. And quite frankly, we spend a lot of money on food and beer at this place. Take it from me. So we can't invest in, having some fun and, letting people just let their hair down a little bit at a ball game. So, to me, we just have to keep doing what we're doing and get back to that, always go back to that foundation, which is, invest in our people, let them follow their passion for operations, practice area, or technical, and then let the magic happen. Good things will happen if you let people just run.
I got to say, you got to be careful. You have to be careful when you let your hair down. Sometimes it comes out. So I'm just saying, just be careful. Now, you mentioned a couple of examples of folks coming to you with an idea or wanting to move someplace or start a new office. Is there a time when someone inside the firm brought you a bold idea that you said yes to, even though the math said no, at least the initial math?
Yeah, every day. Listen, I always ask people, this is not Izzo Inc., right? This is Syska Hennessy Group. So we have, I would say, a informal and a formal process of where people come to us with, hey, did you ever think of this? Did you ever think of that? There's a particular location in the United States that is very cool for some of the younger generation to live in. I won't get into the exact zip code. It's very cool. And I said, well, that's great. I think they just have to work for a different firm because it's not really cool for us, not part of our plan. And, you'll get all the people telling you why you're wrong. And, we can't live without these people. And the truth is, I want to make everybody feel like their passion is something that we invest in within reason. So like when the fella came to us and said, I want to go to Shanghai, we had absolutely no business going to Shanghai. We had zero reason to be there. In fact, he hadn't been there in probably 18 years, so we did it because we trusted him, right? We did it because we knew he was the DNA of the type of person that would work like we do everything in his power to be successful. And with a little bit of support, some years more so than others, he would knock it out of the park. So yeah, some people came to me and was like, what are you doing? We shouldn't be in, China at all, no less, picking Shanghai. And if you're going to do it, we're not Hong Kong, we're not Beijing, we're not. I said, well, he's not living there. We can't tell him go to Beijing if he wants to live in Shanghai. But he had the DNA of the person. So it's really about the core values and investing in the core values of the, kind of decisions we make, whether that's at the individual level or opening an office or getting into a new sector.
We've been around now for 19 years or so.
Congrats.
Cyrus, yeah. So we pale in comparison to the 98, 97 years that Syska Hennessy has been around. we've seen many firms either accidentally or by design expand overseas. Middle East really around 07, 08, 09, 2010, almost as a hedge against the decline of the U.S. market. The Far East, New Asia, Old Asia, Australia, New Zealand, all with the best intentions, but mostly with the best intentions. And we've seen them oftentimes, those initiatives become distractions for the management team, for the leadership team, for the management team, and have resulted in real failure for firms. Oftentimes because the firms lack the competency to actually think of themselves globally and act globally. That's clearly not been the case. You've talked about bumps along the road, but it's been a successful initiative for Syska Hennessy. In terms of focus and growth through initiatives, it's not like we see a press release every week that Syska Hennessy has acquired another firm. When in this industry now, where we're seeing 450 acquisitions a year, plus or minus, many of your peers are growing through acquisitions. Is that a policy or a strategy of yours not to make acquisitions or be much slower in decision making about acquisitions? Can you speak to that?
Sure. So previous generations to the current leadership team, they made one or two, I'll say relatively small acquisitions. I was an innocent bystander. I will, let everyone know I had nothing to do with it. And that doesn't mean it was good or it's bad. I just wasn't involved.
Not a sign for goal to buy innocent bystander. No, not
exactly. But, and listen, you learn from the good and from the not so good. So we were able to, watch and witness what went on, and some of it was good, and some of it, I think, was not so good. And I think the people who did it for all the right reasons, and I give them a lot of credit for sticking their chin out when they did it. I would give them both, because I'm a nice guy, maybe like a C-. I really would say a D, but I'm a nice guy. I'm going to say a C- on what the outcomes were. But that's okay, because we were willing to take the chance at that time. And it wasn't sexy at the time, right? To go out and, do M&A. This is back in, early 2000s probably, or mid 2000. And, I got to watch things that really could have added value to the firm. And I got to watch things that really hurt the firm's culture. But it's okay, because we had a good base and we were able to recover. So that's just like the preamble. Our existing 10-year plan that'll concluding this year, we looked at many deals, many deals. My former partner who's retired and I, the CFO at the time, I have to tell you, when you really peel back the curtain, a lot of this was funding people's IRAs.
Yeah.
And I wasn't that excited, to be honest with you. I would say that 8 out of the 10 that we looked at were, when you really got down to it, it was funding their lifestyle or funding their IRA. So we weren't that excited. If people want to join the firm, they need to get on our platform. We're a platform company, right? We're not looking to be an add-on to a WSP or an AECOM or a Jacobs. We are a platform. If you want to join our platform, we're happy to have you. But, funding people's retirement plans, if there's 1 or 2 out of the 5 or 6 that need to, retire, that's fine. But if everybody thinks they're leaving, that's not cool. So I would say in the future, stay tuned. I think you'll see more activity out of the firm over the next 10 years than you did over the last 10.
Thanks, Cyrus. Just one more thing on that topic. C-D is the grade that Mark gave me last year in the review that he gave.
Your review?
Which was one of the higher.
Again, I'm a nice guy.
One of the higher
so I had to.
He's a
grades.
nice guy. He's
Yeah.
a nice guy.
Yeah.
He had a good quarter.
It was good, solid.
Very
quarter.
good quarter.
Yeah.
Cyrus, you're not going to like this question, because
Then I won't answer it.
you excel at shining the spotlight on others. But I'll ask it anyway. you have helped, and I've witnessed it, you've helped Syska become more future focused and more aggressive in shaping its destiny. What do you think your successors will say you set in motion?
Some might say, thank God he's gone, but I think most would say, don't let it be that, the reason some of this is brute force. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think there's a lot of people out there that are smarter than me. Just ask my wife, she'll tell you a whole list of people. But, don't let people outwork you. Right. So the competition is very strong. Right. And I think the competition is very smart. And I really hold some of them in a very high esteem. I think they're amazing people and they run amazing firms. But I do think you get out of it, kind of what you put into it. If you're willing to bet on people with the right core DNA, you're willing to support them, but you're also willing to roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty. And that includes many flights, around the planet at really rough times of your personal life and putting some of that stuff on hold. You need the support structure at home to make that a success. I get it. But, I would hope the next generation rolls up their sleeves, puts their head down, and understands that some of it takes just brute force. You really need to lean in. You cannot delegate everything away and hope for the best.
And I will say,
from the front.
I'll say, Mick, that Cyrus is all in. And for someone in his role that is as busy as he is and is in so many different aspects of the firm, yet allowing the firm and its people to grow and find their way, he's all in. And, Cyrus, we get back and forth and email occasionally, and I'll email Cyrus something offhand, and within 5 minutes, he's back to me. So Cyrus is all in and he is focused. And I think, to your point, Cyrus, I hope that folks learn from that and emulate that when you decide at some point to maybe pull back your direct involvement in the firm.
Well, I would like to have my golf score not look like somebody's bowling score one day. So that just takes effort and brute force too unfold.
Yeah. It never really happens.
No. I remember, I forget the comedian talking about it. And he said, when you first start playing golf, you're terrible. So you cheat a little bit and you lower your score. And then as you get better, you stop cheating, but your score doesn't go anywhere. So what's the point? You just didn't bother anymore.
Exactly. Go buy a boat, go fishing. It's easy.
Exactly.
Less stressful.
Bonus lightning round, Mick. I think we're ready for some questions here.
Yep.
So we'll go through a few rapid fire with you, Cyrus. What's the one trend in the industry right now that you think is overrated?
Overrated. I think people have a misconception when it comes to project delivery. I think some of the things that people hope to achieve would say, pick design build, right? I think design build is terrific. I think we're experts at it. In fact, I can prove it with numbers, with client satisfaction. But I think people think that design build is the, cure all for all their problems. And I think they need to be educated. It's not the cure all. And unless you really do the upfront work, as an owner, I'm talking about, the upfront work to get a great outcome, design build will be your worst nightmare if you don't do it right.
Yeah,
some people are not educated in it, Mark, and they just jump in and they have the wrong reasons for jumping in.
Yep. All right, next one. If you had to build a new engineering firm from scratch tomorrow, no legacy, no offices, no baggage, what would you do differently, if anything?
Well, that's assuming I didn't go into investment banking, right? Okay. So if I was going to do a crazy business, I think I would continue to do what has made the firm really successful, is hire smarter people than me, which is not hard to find. Really, I'm not joking around about that.
Just get your wife's list and start there.
Get her list and start with her. She'll make her the CEO. Great job. But seriously, continue to hire the best and the brightest. Is you cannot underestimate that. You cannot sugarcoat it. That is really what is the secret sauce of the firm.
Last one. You get a call from a brilliant 30-year-old who wants Syska to invest in their startup. What's the one question you ask to know if it's worth your time?
How much time did they spend in two aspects? One, everybody will tell you they did all this market research. And then when you ask them who their competition is and they say, I don't know, I get very concerned, because if you don't know your competitors deeply and intimately, you are going to get your clock cleaned in any industry. I don't care if you're selling hot dogs or pizza on the corner, or you're doing this, or you start up. If you don't understand the strengths and weaknesses of your competitors, you will be in for a big surprise.
Yeah, and you got to be all in. And that's part of being all in, is understanding what's happening around you internally, sure, but externally as well.
Absolutely.
You mentioned something earlier on, and that I thought is important about strategic planning in general, and how, it doesn't always, your plan doesn't account for everything. So there's going to be changes, and you have to roll with that. And I think sometimes there's a fear of being wrong, because the work that you do has life and safety consequences, that when you're trying things out, you have to get it right when you're building a firm, and you're not going to. It's trial and error, really.
Some degree.
So yes, to some degree. And I think to me, when people say, was your strategic planning effort successful? And I don't think it's necessarily, we reached our vision. It's that. But did we learn along the way? And getting stuff wrong isn't the bedbug of intellect. It's how you get things right. What's your philosophy on that? How do you live through that?
No, I think that's a great point. So take COVID, for example. I know I've put it out of my mind. To me, it's a story that, it happened. We dealt with it as an industry, as a firm. We had to make choices. We did all the right things to keep our people safe and our clients safe. And then, we had to move on. When you think about making mistakes, oh my God, how many mistakes were made through COVID, from government to clients to private sector? No one had the playbook. But we learned a lot about ourselves along the way, right? We know that, for the Syska Hennessy culture, we needed to be together to have great outcomes. Now, some team members will debate me for the next decade, I'm sure, about hybrid and what it means and what it should mean. And I get all that within reason, but we still have a responsibility to our clients, our shareholders, and our team members to make sure that this firm continues to elevate. So yes, I think we learned a lot about ourselves through COVID, of, kind of having the mettle to go forward, wake up in the morning, figure out the technology. Now we deployed some of those lessons learned into the current state and hopefully the future to make the firm even better. So you're right. I think a strategic plan is, to me, a compass, a guiding star, but it has to be uber flexible, because there are so many things we can't control that are external to the company.
Yeah. And as the old saying goes, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And then, that's all out the window.
Mike Tyson.
Exactly. So one last, it's now time for word to the wise, Cyrus, what everybody's been waiting for with bated breath.
Yeah.
It's where we ask our guests for some wise words. So Cyrus, what is one piece of wisdom you'd pass on to the next generation of leaders in this industry, especially those who want to do more than just lead a firm, but reshape it?
Look, I think I mentioned it earlier, and it'll happen. I think it'll be more realistic going forward than ever before. You really need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. If you're not in a place where, things change outside, things that you have to pivot on a dime, make changes, make decisions with less than 75% of the information. You're lucky if you have 75%. And understand that, you may fail. If you're not comfortable doing that, it'll be very difficult, I think, to get through life. no less run a firm or aspire to reshape an organization.
Cyrus, thanks so much for joining us today. Hope you have enjoy the rest of a great summer. And thanks to our viewers. Appreciate it. Please like and subscribe, and we hope to see you next time on the street.